Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of living in Rice Military. If that's what you're here for, we're getting after it right now. Hey, I'm Kerry Fletcher and this is
Drew Mims.
Together we're Drew Kerry. A little funny, but makes it easy to remember. And this channel is all about living, sleeping, eating, breathing Houston and that Houston lifestyle. So if that's what you're looking for, hit that
subscribe button
and ring that bell. That way you're notified every time we put out a video. And we're putting out videos, what, once or twice a week now?
Yep.
About once or twice a week. And whenever you're ready to go ahead and make that decision to move to Houston, you can give us a call. You can send us a text message or an email or
Pony Express.
Pony Express. We don't care, whichever way you want to contact us. We've got your back when moving here to Houston. So let's get into it. First, number one pro, the biggest thing when you think of Rice Military, what do you think?
Walkability.
Walkability. So it has a walkability score of
75.
75 out of 100. And what's the biggest? Which is high, especially for Houston, because Houston's known as everybody loves their cars, everybody loves to drive. So it's not known as a walkable city overall. So what makes Rice Military such a walkable neighborhood? Well,
there's tons of restaurants and bars. And then, of course, you've got nearby parks.
So the bars and restaurants, they're consolidated. What do you call that? You call that Washington Avenue, Washington Corridor?
Washington Corridor.
Washington Corridor. And that runs right through the middle of Rice Military. So you've got everything to the south, down towards the bayou, down towards the bayou parks, and everything to the north that runs up towards I-10, right?
Yes.
And there's sort of a, is there a major difference between those two areas?
Between?
The south of Washington Corridor and the north of Washington Corridor.
Well, if you're north of Washington, if you're on the north side, you're closer to I-10, so you're going to have more traffic noise. I think from a buyer standpoint, I would definitely want to be south of Washington Avenue. The price point definitely goes up. I think the homes are a little bit nicer, and you're more centrally located to Allen Parkway and Memorial Park, as well as the restaurants and bars. Whereas if you're north of I-10, north of Washington, you're essentially between Washington Avenue and I-10. So it's a little more cramped, I think, the feeling, it's a little more crowded.
So, you know, walkability. So the number one driving factor for the walkability is, what did it say on that website? The walkability said that most of your errands and most of the things you need and want to do within the Rice Military area, you can walk to. Go out to eat, go to a grocery store, take care of most of the day-to-day errands,
with the new HEB, you can even walk to the grocery store.
Right.
Which is fantastic.
All right, so that gets us to, and we sort of touched on it a little bit, is walkability as far as just exercise and going to the park. The number two pro is convenience to both Memorial Park and the Buffalo Bayou parks. So, little known fact, where does Rice Military, it seems like an odd name, Rice Military. Where does Rice Military get its name?
Tell us. I'm not even sure that I know.
All right, so back in World War I, Memorial Park used to be what's called Camp Logan, or a little military base right here in Houston. And so this area just outside of Memorial Park, north of the bayou, became the area that supported that camp. It became this military area where you had the housing, the shops, everything that supports a military base. And after World War I, that land, the people who owned it, donated it to the city to become a park and memorializing those people who died in World War I. Therefore, it became Memorial Park, and that area that was just outside of it became Rice Military. Now, the Rice part of it was from John Rice, the same guy who donated all his fortunes to the forming of Rice University. So that's sometimes a little known fact.
Never knew that.
Yeah,
I thought maybe they had rice paddies or something there.
No. So rice
fields.
Rice Military. So when you talk about walkability and you talk about the number 2 biggest pro when it comes to Rice Military, it's ease of access to Memorial Park and Buffalo Bayou Park. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why Memorial Park and Buffalo Bayou Park are so sought after as far as being able to have convenience for that?
Well, Memorial Park is big. Do you know how big it is?
I don't. It's huge.
You should probably look that up. It's large. You can go running. A lot of people like to run and walk. There's a 3-mile course that a lot of people do on a daily basis. You can go and take advantage of the hike and bike trails and go ride your bike all through the park. You can play golf. You can play basketball. They've got baseball fields. Really just about anything. But the golf course in the middle is beautiful. There's even a restaurant. You can go eat after you're done with your workout.
A couple other things, the Arboretum, and also there is horse stables and a horse arena where they do polo matches, and they also do a lot of the other equestrian sports right there within Memorial Park as well.
That's just on the edge.
Right. So a huge park, Memorial Park, very desirable. What about the Buffalo Bayou Park system?
Oh, so I personally love to go walk along the bayou. There's beautiful trails. They've put a lot of money into revamping and lighting. So like, you know, in the wintertime when it gets dark at 5:30, there's, you know, you want to go run after work, you can do that, and it's well lit. It's beautiful along the water. They have bridges. There's monuments kind of dispersed throughout, and it's just, you almost feel like you're not in the city, except for the fact that you actually have a beautiful front row view of downtown.
And Rice Military is so convenient. You can just, from a lot of the neighborhoods, a lot of the areas there, you can just come right out your front doorstep with the kids, the stroller, the dog, the bike, and just be either in Memorial Park or Buffalo Park within a matter of minutes. Now, talking about bridges, do you know anything about the new land bridge that they're putting in Memorial Park?
I know a little bit. Why don't you tell?
All right, so literally part of the, and we've covered this in some of our other videos, traffic, you know, that 610 west side of the loop is notorious for congestion. And so there's been all this revamping, putting in dedicated bus lines, alternate ramps. And one of the things that's supposed to be coming, I think, in 2022, if not 2021, is they're actually building a land bridge that's going to tie Memorial Park over that 610 area into
Galleria.
Yeah, into the Galleria to help reduce the traffic coming from Memorial Park down into the Galleria, and also give ease of access from that Galleria area over into Memorial Park.
That's going to be huge.
Huge. So number 3, the number 3 pro that we're going to be talking about today, and let me tell you, the cons, you're going to want to stick around to the cons, especially the last one, because it's going to have the biggest impact on your decision. So I know we're kind of going through this, but you definitely want to stick around for some of the cons because they're real.
Need to know. Okay,
so affordability. I've got some numbers here, ran some analysis. Let's just compare it to the neighborhood that's just to the north side, Heights, just to the north side of I-10, and sort of compare that. So the median home price within Rice Military is $471,000, okay?
Which is great inside the loop.
And the price per square foot is $205.30, roughly. And that's the median,
very reasonable,
not the average. Then you compare that to the Heights, which is just north of I-10. It has a median home price of $644,000 with a price per square foot of $348.50. So
substantial.
Yeah, from an affordability standpoint, it's a big difference just between those two neighborhoods, between those areas. Mm-hmm. Now, so affordability is number 3. Number 4, easy commute to the major work centers. So a lot of people who live in Rice Military need to work or want to work downtown, or they want to reverse commute out to the energy corridor, or they need to work in the Galleria, the Med Center. Heck, you could even easily commute from there down to NASA.
We have a friend that commutes out to Sugarland, actually.
Oh yeah.
From Rice Military, yeah.
Okay. So Sugarland, just anywhere within this Houston area that you need to work, it's an easy commute, and easy being relative, right? Easy.
You're going against traffic, which
right.
is always beneficial.
Right. So easy commute. Number 5, and this is the last pro we're going to talk about before we start getting into the cons, and the cons you're going to want to stick around to. 5 is, it's actually, even though it's next to the bayou, even though it's next to Memorial Park, it's actually got some really high elevation and is not prone to flooding. And I think we're going to I'll cut in and show you the aerial satellite image of the flood mapping of this area.
And if you know anything about Houston, we've got some flooding issues. So being in a neighborhood that has higher elevations and doesn't flood is huge, because it's going to save you the hassle, obviously, of nobody wants to have their house flooded.
It's one of the first things, if it's not one of the first questions that I get, it's one of the first questions that should be asked.
Yes.
Is, has it flooded? Is it prone to flooding?
And the other side of that too is that you have, lower insurance rates. You're not going to have to pay the high flood insurance rates.
Now, when you talk about, there was a whole bunch of, especially after Harvey, there was a whole bunch of new programs that came in as far as digging out some of the ditches, but also changing some of the rules and regulations about home building and home renovation. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those details? Obviously, by the flared eyes and the pursed lips, that would be no. That's okay.
Give me a hint as to what you're...
Well, so that they restrict the amount of concrete that you put on your lot. So that's why when you see a lot of these newer homes being built, they won't have concrete driveways. They'll have these concrete blocks intermixed with gravel, or they'll have patches of this grass within it, because they restrict the amount of concrete so that you maintain some permeability. But the number one and most important thing that you need to understand is the new regulation that if you go in and apply for a permit to do any kind of renovation on your home, or you want to do some upkeep on it, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to make you elevate it to where it's 2 feet above the nearest, or the floodplain. So that's the 500-year floodplain. So even if you want to go in and do a renovation on your kitchen, let's say, and you go in and do the permits, the first thing that if you happen
you want to pull the permits,
right? And if you're in a floodplain area, or if you're in one of those lower elevations and you don't have an elevation certificate, or if it hasn't already been elevated, they're going to require you to do that elevation work before you get the permit. So it's something that being in that area gives you a big advantage, because of the elevation of the land. It's one less, I can't say it's one less thing you have to worry about, but it just makes it that much easier.
Ease of mind. I think it can bring a lot more joy, not having to worry about that.
So now that we've sold you on Rice Military, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best place ever. I have to move to Rice Military when I go to Houston. Let's start talking about some reality checks, because there's a reason why it's more affordable. There's some obvious cons here. You want to hit them with the first one? So
the lots tend to be smaller, and so you tend to have less green space.
Okay, green space, like as in tiny yards, if yards at all. Green space as far as, because of the smaller lots, they're putting a lot of homes on it. Also,
the closer you are to town, right? And this is very close to downtown. Land is at a premium, and so you're always going to pay more. And so part of what keeps this neighborhood more affordable is the fact that the lots are smaller, and we're going to go into that in another, in our number 2. So I won't go there yet. Spoil it.
But also, we talked about the walkability. We talked about the ease of the parks. Those are kind of around and around the borders. When you get into Rice Military, there's not any parks, whereas like the Heights or some of these.
There are some parks. They're just small little pocket parks.
There's not many. I went.
Right, but you said there weren't any at all. There are some.
There are some. As a matter of fact, I've got some video footage.
And you are close to the big parks.
I've got some video footage. The one park that I could find. Hey everybody, we are right here at Nellie Keys Park right in the middle of this Rice military area. We're just south of Washington, where we showed you all the restaurants, bars are. Right in the middle of this little walkable neighborhood, but I'm gonna show you this real quick. This is a community garden area here as well. Let's just get a little pan around as far as the houses go. So this is very typical Rice military. A lot of townhomes, a lot of homes that are right next to each other. Very narrow streets. Still some homes or areas that are older that still need to be renovated, that are being sold for lot value. But you've got a nice little park and community garden center. And there's some new construction going on right over there. So this should give you a look and feel of Rice military. See how narrow the streets are, how difficult it is to have any kind of parking.
And you can find lots that do have some outdoor green space. They're just going to be harder to find, and they're not the norm.
Yeah, and they'll also come at a premium.
Right, we're going to pay more.
All right, because we've got the small lots, because we don't have much green space, and we're trying to, these builders are trying to create as much value on the smallest piece of land. What's the next number 2 con? And we talked about it.
Well, they build up. So your average home in Rice military will have 3 stories.
Right.
Which is, you know, something to consider, because if you've got, oftentimes they put the master bedroom on the 3rd floor. So if you're leaving in the morning to go somewhere to work, or you're running late and you forget something and you're already downstairs in the garage, you're gonna have to run all the way up 3 flights of stairs to, you know, go grab something. If you have knee surgery or break a leg or whatever, it's gonna be, you know, a hassle having 3 stories. If you have babies, you know, it can be challenging carrying them up and down 3 flights of stairs. Or
if you have dogs, it's sometimes you have to, if you don't have enough yard space, you got to take them out and do the walk. But with those 3 stories, so there's a little known thing, one thing you need to know. Why don't they build 4 stories? Why don't they build 5 stories? Do you know this one?
I think it has to do with the fire hazard. If
you make any, this is all city of Houston, all of Harris County, if you build a house that has 4 floors, right, then that 4th floor, actually the whole house, has to have sprinkler systems. So what you'll see is, you'll see these 3 stories, and that last story is a outdoor space. If you're lucky and affordable, if you find that, it's gonna have a rooftop deck. It might have a little bit of a wet bar, but it's not gonna be any kind of living space where you can put a bed, put a closet, and call it an extra bedroom. It's going to be an outdoor space, or tied into the outdoor space. Okay, multi-level houses. You also don't see a lot of, you'll see some, but it's rare to find one with an elevator. So if you have elderly guests or people over, and like she said, most of them are on the 3rd, most of the master bedrooms are on the 3rd floor. So you'll see a lot of people now that are baby boomers moving out of that area because of just getting to that age where you can't continue to go up and down the 3 flights of stairs.
What's number 3?
I say no parking, but it's not really no parking, but it's lack of parking, or parking comes at a premium, and also very narrow streets and lack of sidewalks. So the walkability score comes from the convenience of having all this stuff right there, right next to you. The walkability score doesn't necessarily drive from these sidewalks and big roads and places where you're literally, to walk, you have to do a lot of the walking out on the street, and you have to walk out on the street where there's cars that are parked.
Well, and remember, there's lots of bars and restaurants, and so when we're not in the middle of COVID quarantine, there's a lot of night activity, and you know, people tend to park, and it can be difficult just to navigate around. I know a lot of the little smaller areas, homeowners have gotten together and gotten with the city to have them put up no parking signs.
Yep.
So that when you have people over, I mean, today a lot of people are going to be Ubering or taking a Lyft if they're out and about in the evening, but it is something to consider that it does get rather congested at night.
Yeah, and houses go for a premium if they have sort of these three key things. Straight end parking, right? And you don't have to go into a common parking area. You've got an outside rooftop deck, downtown view. And then 3, you've got at least enough yard space, enough outdoor space that you can let the dog or the kid go out into the backyard.
Put a barbecue grill, that kind of thing.
So those 3 things, and you know, so that's a real con, is because you've got these narrow streets and lack of parking. All right, so number 4, I'm gonna let you cover this one because you've been telling me about this ever since I moved to Houston.
There are pockets of less than great construction, meaning a lot of builders went in, you know, the land was relatively affordable when they started building and developing Rice Military. And so I think you had a lot of newer builders that maybe had less experience or cutting corners and just were wanting to do a lot of quantity. And so you really have to do your homework and check out who the builder was, and also really have that house inspected, because there are some homes that, you know, 5 to 10 years after they're built, they kind of look like maybe they need to be torn down and replaced already, which, you know, isn't so great. And so I think, again, you tend to see more of that on the north side maybe than the south, but it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So, you know, you want to be careful and watch out for that.
All right, and so that number 4 really drives number 5, and the most important one, and thank you ever so much, you're gonna appreciate this one, is the home prices have not appreciated as much as, say, some of the other areas around there, like the Heights. Heights, you had something like 100% appreciation on land value. You had a 70–80% appreciation on home price valuation. You're not getting that same sort of return on investment over the last 10-year period.
My 2 cents on that would be, if you're looking, you know, for a property that you're going to be able to sell in 2 to 3 years and make $100,000 on it, not the neighborhood for that. If you want to live in a neighborhood for the lifestyle and the convenience and the affordability, absolutely a great place to be.
Well, and then not only that, but if you want to buy a place, live there, love that area, and then, okay, you're in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to move on to another house, but you want to keep that one as like a rental property for investment purposes, or you just want to hold on to a long hold. We've had a number of clients who've done that, who start in that Rice Military area, live there for a while, enjoy it, outgrow it when they start getting the kids and the dogs and the everything else, move up, and then keep that one there to maintain a rental property. Okay, well, thank you for sticking around, and look, if you're ready to go, just go ahead and come here to Houston.
Give us a call.
Shoot us a text message, send us a email, or even a
Pony Express.
Pony Express. It doesn't matter. Any which way you want to contact us, we've got your back when moving here to Houston.
See you next time.